Hi, this is Kara from the Special Needs Mom podcast.
And this is Angela from Especially Organized, Sensible Solutions for Special Needs Moms.
We have this heart for special needs moms. And so we thought, you know what, let's combine forces. And we have come up with what we're calling the Purge Party. And you can pretty much guess what it is. It's a party where we're going to come together and we're going to purge, or in general, accomplish a goal, a small goal together. So we have set this for January 27th, starting at 8 o'clock for my Pacific Coast people.
Which means 11 o'clock for all of you on the East Coast. So this is an opportunity. If you have something on your to-do list that has just been stuck there and you are wanting to move it up on the list, you're wanting to tackle, maybe it's a space or an area of your home or a category in your home that has just needed a little time and attention. This is your opportunity for you to be online with us while you work and have access for us to help you answer your questions, help guide you, and just serve you for those 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you can tell like what we've designed is just this very high level of support for that project that you just haven't been able to tackle on your own. The thing that we are envisioning is that you get to leave this purge party feeling so accomplished because you did the thing. You started the year off getting that thing done that you were stuck on last year. And so it's a momentum builder, if you will. You can go ahead and sign up. We have a link ready for you. And we are offering this for $40 for the whole experience.
Absolutely. And we hope you'll join us. I think it's going to be really fun. It's going to be a great group of moms of special needs kids. So we all get each other. We all have an understanding of what it's like to have something on our to-do list, but just we haven't been able to tackle it yet. So I hope that you will join us. We're super excited to bring this to you, and we are thrilled to work with you.
All right. We'll see you all there. Hi, I'm Kara, life coach, wife, and mom to 4 incredible and unique children. It wasn't all that long ago that my son received a diagnosis that had my world come crashing down. I lacked the ability to see past the circumstances, which felt impossible, and the dreams I once had for my life and family felt destroyed. Fast forward past many years of surviving and not at all thriving, and you'll see a mom who trusts that she can handle anything that comes her way and has access to the power and confidence that once felt so lacking. I created the Special Needs Mom podcast to create connection and community with moms who find themselves feeling trapped and with no one who really understands. My intention is to spark the flare of possibility in your own life and rekindle your ability to dream. This isn't a podcast about your special needs child. This is a podcast about you. If you are a mom who feels anxious, alone, or stuck, then you are in the right place. Welcome. Hello and welcome back to the Special Needs Mom podcast. Today's episode is an interview style episode, and I'm really happy to bring it to you here. Mishka Sibert is our guest today, and she happens to be the sibling, sharing the sibling experience of growing up and kind of raising a brother with autism. And so I was a little worried at first in the sense that like, I don't necessarily do how-to episodes as far as like how to be a great mom and how to basically manage the sibling experience. However, Mishka was so clear on the alignment that actually what our focus is the mother's experience. And so she just has a very unique perspective. And she offers insight on actually who she has had to become as a person and as a sibling. And I feel like it very much mirrors what is required of a mother as she is experiencing all the things that it takes to be the mother of a child with disabilities. And so she happens to be this pretty incredible and accomplished woman. She's the founder of what she calls Happy Autism, and she talks about the name in the episode. She's an advocate for autism and autism siblings, an international speaker, a certified life coach, and an all-around incredible person. She has this lovely accent that we Americans just love, so thank you for sharing your your voice with us, and you're going to get to hear it. She has done a lot of work as she stepped out of what I think a lot of us moms will really relate to is something that just happened to her. She happened to get a brother that has disabilities, and she took it on. You know, she had some years that she was in the impact of that, and she has done something really beautiful with that I think can actually be an inspiration to us mothers. Her voice is one of compassion and kindness, and yet a call forth for mothers to create some awareness around what's actually causing them to do the things that they're doing or not doing, and to step into new possibilities. I forgot to mention at the episode ending, so I want to make sure I mention it now, that Mishka has a book, and the show notes will include all the links available to go find it, as well to find all of her contact information. So I really do encourage you to reach out, thank her for the episode, and I encourage you to buy the book, to actually step into that conversation of what it looks like to have a mother's guide to sibling relationships. And so, without further ado, let's hear from Mishka. Well, Mishka, welcome to the Special Needs Mom podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, your pitch basically came across my desk and I was very intrigued. You brought up the conversation of siblings and siblings of children with disabilities, and you are not yet a mother, is that correct?
No.
Yes,
but I feel like I've been for
yeah, well,
years.
you're significantly older than your brother, who is on the autism spectrum. And so you have a very different experience. And I thought, you know, my focus on this show is never about how we go do the things. It's really who we're being as mothers. And so I was like, oh, this one, I feel like it borders on the line of like a how to be a better mom to siblings. And so I just want to add in that that's not necessarily what we're talking about, but I think you have a very unique perspective that I think will help shine light on our experiences as a mom so that we can kind of create more awareness. And honestly, I think one of the biggest concerns that I have as a mom is the impact of all of this to my other children, my non-disabled children. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your story. Let's give everybody a little picture about how you got to the place where you've written a book now on how to help mothers with the sibling experience. So share a little bit about that, please.
Yeah. Well, that's so I'll just share like two pivotal moments. I'm the kind of person that I can go to the extreme. I don't know whether it's because I'm Capricorn. Or I'm like, I'm very love work and like what I do. So it's my workaholic and passionate nature. But we did add on a little bit of salt and sugar and like a little bit topping with being a sibling and being like the responsible one all the time and being like, yeah, Mishka, you're the neurotypical, or you seem like to be neurotypical. I believe I'm neurodivergent, but never mind. But there was no like diagnosis like it. They would actually confirm it because we're not there yet. I would have to go to a different country and pay thousands of, of money, of pounds or dollars or something. But anyways, so I was just like, yeah, well, I don't know how to say no. I used to be a big people pleaser and recurring people pleaser, but in a negative, unhealthy way, because I just wanted to help everyone all the time. And I was praised for helping people. And also I had a wonderful example of my grandma who, she was like this warrior making changes in this world and creating impact and helping people. So she was always like teaching me that as like important value to be kind, to help people. And when my brother was born, I was like, oh my God, like there is a chance I need to help my mom. My mom and dad were pretty much lost. My dad started like dissociating more and more into work, and then it ended up into divorce. So they divorced 11 years ago. And that's when my mom broke down into tears for like a year and a half. And it just broke my heart. Like it was so many emotions I didn't know how to deal with them. And then I just like didn't know because nobody taught me about emotions. So what happened is like my whole childhood I was mostly caregiver to my brother, and my parents would leave me alone with him, or I would go for a walk with him and he would have like meltdowns, and I was a teenager, didn't know how to deal with that.
You were
Yeah.
like how old when he was born, your brother?
12.
You were 12 when he was born, and he was diagnosed at 2.5, although obviously
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
probably exhibiting behaviors before then. So
Yes.
you
Yes.
were like, yeah, a very young teenager with a toddler, it sounds like. Wow. Okay, keep going.
Yes. Yes. I even like shared publicly one thing which I realized. I find your podcast very therapeutic, and I find podcasting very therapeutic. So I recorded like 8 episodes just of our own podcast, and I was sharing things that probably not many people, siblings, don't share, because we just punish ourselves for even feeling this way many times, or we are told that we should not, and because we don't want to burden our families. So I started sharing all things about my trauma, about my anxiety, about PTSD, like the moment when my parents left me with a crying baby and I was 9, because my brother, they at the time they didn't know he's autistic. So we were in a foreign country. I didn't have phone. They left and they left me alone with him. And I started bursting, and he woke me up with crying. And when he was crying, he was pretty much like very screaming, like very, very horrible sound. So now I have problems with crying babies, to be honest. But yeah, so I was left alone with him, and that left deep mark in my body, like anxiety, and to like that I didn't know how to process. I was used to given big responsibilities all the time at work. I was the one they would cross the boundaries constantly, even the contract, like they would give me more tasks to do, and I didn't know how to say no. It would happen all the time. For example, I lived in London and I had 2 jobs and I burned out completely. And that's where I realized, wait, something is happening. Why am I always the one that has to take responsibility for others? Why am I the only one that holds like the burden for the whole school, for everyone, and just always is just, yes, throw everything at me? So I didn't know that, right? What's wrong? And then I moved back to Slovakia after 4 years of being in London, 2017, and I started going into depths of the depth of my soul. My mom, she didn't really understand what's happening, but I was trying to going through a self-discovery, very deep one. And I had a space of being at home, but at the same time, it was a challenge because I was with my mom and my brother in the same environment. And I was already a different person because I had my own life. So when I came home, I experienced in 2019 something like shortly after my 25th birthday, like near-death experience. And it was near-death because, again, I was on the edge. So it happened multiple times. I was on the edge of that. First time when I was 12, when my brother was diagnosed, well, of course, it happened back then because a lot of, suppressed emotions showing up as psychosomatic symptoms in my body, and also me enjoying being in a hospital because someone is taking care of me finally and giving me attention, which is very common with siblings. And then so I would be ill all the time, like many times per year. And then when I was 25, and the doctor refused to give me treatment that I needed, which was antibiotics. And he refused, and then 2 other doctors backed him up saying, no, 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 you're fine. It was literally like saying this kind of like, you're fine, and we don't see that you're not, and we're not going to give you help. And it was a reflection of like, wow, like what happened? Like I had to go to a different city, and they literally went onto surgery because I had an enormous infection that was very, very,
Wow.
they told me that it's on the edge. They literally said, well, you've got to have surgery right now. It's good that you came to a different city because you could have died, because if that infection went to your brain or heart, you would be dead. So my mom was freaking out. I was very peaceful when I was in a different city because I felt like it's, I don't know, something spiritual, I don't know what. It was something very strong. I knew that I'm going to be fine, but I wanted to be in this world because I've got family here, because I want to live. I'm young and I want to live my life. But that moment changed me in terms of my own perspective towards myself, in terms of like relationship towards myself.
Yeah, I want to pause here just to kind
yes.
of point out something so interesting. So it sounds like the narrative of kind of your whole life was, you're fine. You're fine. Somebody else has something. You're fine. So much so that you were, I don't know if we would say that you were emitting this, but multiple doctors said you're fine. But
Yeah.
you had this pivotal point, it sounds like, where you're like, no, I am not fine. You actually knew it. You learned how to listen to that like inner voice. I'm not fine.
Yes.
Very unfine. And that shift created you seeking out help. A doctor that
Yes.
would listen to you, that would see what actually is there. That is so interesting and very powerful. It sounds like a very life-saving moment, but also very life-informing for you, really shifting that story that had perpetuated from kind of the circumstances that you were in.
Yes, 100%. I believe it was supposed to happen. I'm always trying to find reasons in why things happen, why I behave certain way. So I say asking the why so many times. I just didn't have enough until I don't know how, but that year in autumn, I spoke to special needs siblings, women from all around the world. I don't know how it didn't happen. I just started sharing. I just felt like I'm that inner child within me, like the inner, like younger parts that was like, remember those things. You need to be process emotions and express them. So I started writing like a poem or something, like it was called Sibling Diaries on our Instagram. And I was very scared to share this because it was very vulnerable, but I felt like, hey, well, these are the feelings of my 12-year-old self. These are the feelings that I have about being a parent one day. This is like a relational decisions that I'm making for my life. And I would love to share that. And moms were sharing with of other children were sharing with me that they are glad that I'm opening up this conversation because they're aware of certain things that maybe they can bring this conversation. They can start conversation with their children and understand more of the experiences. Because as I said, like I didn't share things with my mom for more than 25 years. I wasn't aware, that I had right to share.
I agree that actually speaking things out, letting things come into the light is really, really powerful. Shame can only, I think this is a Brene Brown thing, but shame can only exist in secret. And one of the most, I think I was looking back, and one of the most popular episodes I did over the last, I don't know, 3 or 6 months was the episode called Unpermissible Thoughts, where it's an episode that talks about the things that we actually think and think in secret. We don't tell people, but we're all thinking them, special needs moms and maybe siblings too. And actually, I want to look at a thought that you shared with one of your quotes, the idea, I can't have needs or ask for help because I don't have special needs and don't want to burden my mom. And
Yeah.
before I ask you a question to kind of lead off of that, I want to say this is mother's biggest fear. This is one of my biggest fear that any of my children will think this. And also one of my fears, honestly, is having the capacity for all of my children's needs, because some of them are really loud. And so I guess the question I have is, knowing that moms, I want to put this in here too for moms, even if we did a perfect job, an absolutely flawless job, our children would still develop beliefs that were hurtful to them.
Yes.
So I want to make sure we recognize the idea is not perfection here. It's not controlling our child's experience. It's really about attending to them. It's creating awareness and it's attending to their needs. That actually that piece and being authentic with our kids is more important than getting it perfect. So I want to just put that out there before I ask the question. But the question I have for you is, knowing that this is a thought that is very common for siblings in the experience of having a sibling with disabilities, what would you say to moms now that you are an adult? What would you say as a child? What would you say now that you have a little bit more perspective on it?
So if I compare, like, what would I tell my mom? Well, of course, I wouldn't. My mom is so different now when she was, because I acknowledge her in a book saying, thank you for being open to doing the work with me. Because if she wasn't open, we would not, and she would not listen, because she did listen, she did some things very right. For example, listening to when I say, Mom, you're spoiling some coin. He's taking advantage of this. I can see it. He's being cheeky. And she's like, oh, you know what? Yes, I can see that. So she like was, because, like we just adore him so much. And he knows that. He knows that very much, that we adore him. So he can be sometimes very cheeky, but yeah, he's funny. But yeah, so she did things right, but I would say one thing: ask for help. Ask for help is, I repeat constantly, it's something we had to learn, and it's been took us more than 25 years. And I literally this had to happen. What happened to me in order to. That's how bad it is. Like all the like self-sacrifice cycle, or like the cycle of sacrifice. I literally have a whole chapter about this in the book, because it's like you're sacrificing your needs because there is a child with special needs. And it didn't start with me. Like I took this from my mom. She took it from her mother, and my grandma took it from her mother. So the kind of self-sacrificial mother or caretaker was a pattern that we had in our family lineage of women, but it was reinforced by the disability being present in our life. So I told her that, because she started comparing herself, and what you said about perfectionism, it's literally like yes, that's another thing we had to battle with and to overcome and accept that we're not perfect. And because that's another pattern that we had in our family. It's very, very like, yes, it resonates. And it's in the first chapter, like literally in the beginning, I'm like, this is not to make you give you like blame you. This is not to make you feel guilt. This book is literally for moms to establish better, healthier relationship with themselves, so they can mirror that to their children and support them in a better way.
Oh my gosh. I just have to stop you there, because that is brilliant. I love that you, as in your unique position, right? Like not a mother, but someone that is watching this unfold, saying, posit mamas, posit women. Like we have to change this cycle. Oh my gosh. So powerful. So can you say that part say the part about how in the first chapter, you say it loud and clear. What is it that you want us to hear, us mothers to hear loud and clear?
The relationship that you create with yourself, you then teach your children, you mirror that, you project it onto them. They learn from you as a role model how to treat themselves.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh, that is so powerful. Yes. I was actually, just before this call, I was working with a coaching client, and it's so interesting the way that she had a thought that she was alone, that nobody was there to help her. And from that energy, I said, oh my gosh, when I feel that way, when I feel like when I'm trapped, I then start to attack other people. I judge other people. They should be doing this. The system's so messed up. And that's where my brain goes to try to defend against this feeling of feeling alone. And then what happens next is I'm alone because I've cut off everybody because they weren't doing it right. Or I had a story that they didn't want to, or whatever the story is I came up with. And so it's like there's this self-fulfilling cycle of what we create. So the antidote for this is shifting into, first off, full responsibility, actually recognizing, oh, I'm actually the one that's creating this, and then asking for help. I mean, that's not going to solve everything, but it's a start. And actually asking for help. I want to hear your thoughts on this. What do you think has to shift in one's relationship to their self in order to ask for help?
Well, literally, I have like even the Instagram post, but it's in a book also, 4 reasons why you might not ask for help. So I just like started like showing the moms like and women, and because also adult siblings got this book and they find validation in it and like tools, because as I said, this is like for moms, but also it's for siblings, but it's first and foremost for moms, because moms then create environment for their children and they show them how to live their life and how to create relationships themselves. So the first one is like understand why you struggle, asking for help, and that self-reflection. So there are 4 reasons that I'm put in there. Like, first of all, I quoted Frozen. Yeah, because of my favorite song. Conceal, don't feel, don't let them know.
Oh, good one.
Be the good girl. I think something like that. That was
Yes,
the one.
I feel it
Yeah.
right now. Conceal, don't feel, don't let it show. Yes,
Yes.
beautiful.
Yes, that's the one. So if we were in an environment, if we grow in an environment where we are not shown how to process our emotions, and that our parents didn't support us in like accepting exactly what you're talking about, talks about the episode, that those negative emotions, like we're shaming ourselves for feeling them, and it's absolutely okay to feel them, and they belong here. I connect those emotions to my brother's painting. I'm going to show you. I know your listeners won't see, but the painting, it has like dark colors, and it has dark blue, navy, yellow, orange, and so many beautiful colors. And all together, they look beautiful. They create a masterpiece, and that is what makes us human. We are masterpiece, like art, and like a rainbow. We are not judging violet or dark colors and just choosing like the yellow or like the green color. They want to see just that color. No, we're seeing the full spectrum. We're seeing the full rainbow, and we see the beauty in the fullness, in the whole spectrum. So that is like the first things, like acknowledge it. What is a relationship to our negative emotions, and how to feel when we feel those? Because that is like, we don't want to show other people like, hey, I'm feeling really bad, because we don't want them to judge us, because we already probably might judge ourselves. So that shame is like, we want to avoid that shame. We want to avoid feeling negative emotion. So that pretty much sums up like the whole point. Shame is a big one. It's like, you don't want to feel like failure. For example, nobody went to therapy in my family. I'm the only one. And when I went and I asked for help, I felt like I'm the biggest failure for my family. I asked myself, I had this thought in I remember I was literally taking a shower, and I was like, what's wrong with me? Why am I so broken? Why am I not so strong like my grandma? She had near-death experience because of the same reason, by the way. Like, she got told of by the doctors that she trained, because she started as a nurse. That's like typical for nurses. Many doctors, right? That they save other people's lives and they have problems. So yeah, so that was like the thing. And it's the emotional negative trauma like shows up in our thoughts that we feel like we're broken or we're unworthy or there's something wrong with us, but it's actually that we didn't have support, and we don't know what it's like to have that support of the emotions, of the needs being met, and of being validated. So that's why we might have the resistance towards asking for help. We want to be strong. We want to be independent. And I've been learning how to ask for help because I didn't trust people also. So that's another thing.
I want to add something here. My guess is that you are so used to doing it on your own, to being self-sufficient. And then, of course, like you said, you got praised for it, for being so strong. That for you shifting into a place where you're asking for help, my guess is that was especially challenging. And it really required you to restory what it meant to ask for help. Because I think what I'm getting from you is like, for a lot of us, we have a story that asking for help means we're weak or we're vulnerable or we're not as strong as we could be. And I think the story I want to actually have moms start thinking is actually it means that we're strong, that we're willing to ask for help. Because at this point in time in our society, I think it does still require being a little different to ask for help, because many moms here in the States, I can only speak to that busyness is prized and valued. You're important if you're very busy. And actually, I'm really kind of a behind the scenes. I was joking with my friend over the weekend. I was like, I'm going to start a new organization called MAB, Mothers Against Being Busy, because I don't know if you have MAD, there's MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving in the States here. So MAB is a little play off of that, but I think we're hurting ourselves. We're literally killing ourselves as mothers, because the result of being busy has a hormonal impact. And that hormonal impact then ultimately can cause cancer. I'm not saying like it's a straight line path. However, I think it actually is that serious. So this is obviously a tangent, but I'm like really in this time where I've very intentionally not been busy because I'm giving myself space to recover from my son's very intense year, that I feel like it's like I finally can see the craziness that we're all sucked up into. So anyhow, all that to say, I think it takes a restorying of what it means to ask for help. And I think in your shoes, I can only imagine that it took so much working to create a new narrative because you were so highly praised and probably very, very effective at doing it on your own. So well done. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you. It's true. Yes, I was scared that I'm going to lose my mom and her love. But I felt I was already limited in a way.
Yeah.
That, oh my God, if I'm praised as a helper, it creates this helper character. That, oh my God, it's the identity of being the sibling that I had to change towards the identity of being Mishka.
Yeah. Wow.
I had to change my whole identity, which is a lot of work, It's still working on it. I don't think it's never ending story.
Yeah.
But it's like making progress. Really like giving myself validation, and not always seeking it from my mom. Take one.
Well, I think else. I think we're all doing work now as adults to really kind of step into the identities that we actually intend to have, that we want to have, versus the ones that we created, as children growing up, that some of them are disempowering. But it just, the way that you were just able to articulate you stepping into this new identity, it was really powerful. So thank you so much for sharing that, but most importantly for doing the work. Like, I know that means you have dug deep, and you've mentioned that you've done therapy and all the work that you've done, like in writing the book. I'm sure that itself was actually an act of healing for you, but also like a beautiful way of serving others and bringing your pain, but also your triumph to other people. Anything else you have on requests, on mothers specifically asking for help? Any other thoughts on that before we move on?
I always tell moms that imagine if it's hard now and you're not asking for help, imagine what's going to be in 10, 20 years. Because you know that you're on a parenting journey for your whole life and your child won't just leave after they're age 16, 18. And don't compare yourself to other moms. Don't believe I have this, like I literally start this chapter of self-sacrifice, of like comparison of Instagram edited photos and like lifestyles, like, it's exactly what you said, busyness. It's like, oh, I'm doing this. And moms spend 40 hours for a week on therapies with their children. And I'm telling them, like, pause. Just you can achieve so much greatness. Like, we didn't have access to therapies and we shared a lot of great stuff. So I told them, like, don't give your power away to all the specialists in the world. Listen to yourself, because mom intuition is the strongest. I believe moms know the best when they are connected.
Say that again.
More and more.
The way that you said, don't give your power away.
Don't give your power away to specialists.
Yeah.
And doctors and everyone else and other moms. And other moms, like even your mom, because your mom doesn't know your experience. Only you. More you know yourself, more you're connected to yourself, with your body, and you listen to the signals, to their needs, the more you can give, like from a better, healthier place you can give to your children. And that's how you can create that healthy family. That's what I call happy autism, or like happy special needs family. It's like not happiness that everything has to be sparkling, glittery, perfect. No, it comes from you and the environment you create, that it's healthy and nourishing for yourself and for your children.
Let's talk more about that. I want to talk more about what you see as possible in the sibling experience, and also how it relates to kind of having that happiness that you're talking to. Because I think for a lot of people, when they're in the dire parts of parenting a child with significant disabilities, or even any disability, that it feels like they'll never have happiness or they'll never have peace again. And so I'd love to get your perspective on what that means. What does it mean to actually have like a peaceful environment or a happy home?
Again, I was listening to a podcast. I was thinking about this. When you were talking about toxic positivity, I was thinking about the name of our business and organization. And I actually asked myself, do people understand what I mean by the word happy? Because I always try to say like healthy means happy. That's but not healthy, like, like your child doesn't have disability, healthy in the way towards relationship to yourself. And like, if you're meeting your needs, if you're listening to yourself, listen to your body, if you're taking care of yourself, and therefore you can have that cup full. And that's where you find the peace within yourself and the happiness. It's not just like some guru Buddha thing, like what I've literally discovered. And my mom and I have this conversation constantly. And we are asking ourselves many times, are we happy? It's very tough right now. We're going through a tough period where we have a lot of endings, a lot of big beginnings, full of unknown, both of us. And been very challenging also with the situation in Ukraine, which is like hour from our home, which is very scary. So I ask myself, like, let's allow ourselves to be happy, even though many people are suffering. Let's allow ourselves to be happy, even though there's so much happening in this world. And that was a big thing that my mom reminded me, because I was very affected by what happened. I was doing fundraiser for Ukraine. With a sibling that had to flee the country with her brother for safety. She was telling me the most horrible stories ever, and it broke my heart. And I was like, how can we just not support them? So we did a fundraiser, do so many things, by burnout. Not completely, because I have very strong like alarms in my body if it's going to, but I was exhausted, let's say mentally. It wasn't completely burnout, but mentally exhausted. And I started asking myself questions like, yes, being autism advocate and supporting siblings and moms and families is a big, 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 not responsibility, but it takes a lot of mental energy. So I started asking myself, and which is like the siblings sometimes feel guilty for, not sometimes, many times, the sibling guilt that we are not here all 24/7 for our parents and siblings, and that we don't allow ourselves to have happy lives many times. I mean, that feels like we're not allowed to, because our siblings have it hard, and our parents are struggling, and so on. So that's one of the very, very common things. But I tell the siblings, it's like, hey, you learned that as a child. Please choose yourself, choose your happiness, what makes you happy. Even if you just go for a simple thing, it doesn't have to be like you go to Bali for a holiday. It can be just literally like you buying yourself a cup of coffee and just enjoying time alone with yourself, where nobody wants anything from you, on the sun. Those kind of things, that's for happiness for me, like those small moments where I connect with myself again.
I love that actually you brought something up as significant as the war in Ukraine, especially since it's like so close to you. And I know, how we felt it over here when we are so far. It goes along with it. I remember when I was at the hospital last August, and it was right at the time when Afghan was experiencing the overtaking of, was it Al-Qaeda, right? And it was tragic news, right? People were fleeing, losing their lives. It was really world impacting. And I remember thinking, I'm at the hospital with my son. I don't have the capacity to worry about the world right now and my son. And so I made a very active choice to let the world worry about the world. And that I was giving myself permission that it was enough for me just to take care of my son. It's still hard because I'm like, oh, but what if the whole world did that? Then nobody would care for the Afghan people. However, I don't think that that's a helpful thought either, because the whole world doesn't have a child in the hospital, right? The whole world doesn't have emergencies. And so I just don't think it's a helpful line of thought. So I put that in there, but because I think that it shows the capacity that we have of choice in what we choose to think about and what we choose to act on. And I think in your shoes, you chose to actively worry about and act on and caring for the people of Ukraine. And at the same time, you also allowed yourself to simultaneously have happiness. And I think it's a funky thing. It's really, I think, important also in the grief process to recognize that we don't have to be one place or the other. I think like our minds, like I'm a very black and white person where I'm like, I either want to be happy or sad. Like doing both at the same time, that doesn't seem like it works. But they do coexist. And I think the painting, I wish people could see the painting that your brother had painted. It's just a bunch of colors all together. And it's abstract. And if you looked at one of those isolating colors, you might be like, oh, that's an ugly color. It's like a muddy color. I don't know. But it's when you look at it all together that actually is beautiful. And it's coexisting, right? So one alone is maybe a beautiful, happy one, and one's maybe a sad one. They're existing together. And so I think what you said, like maybe a little bit of happiness is going to get a coffee and just enjoying the beauty of the day and allowing that to coexist with all the feelings that there must be a lot when you think about Ukraine and all that's there. What would you have to add to that?
I love it. Yes, the approach you took, I immediately thought about my mom. My mom had a different approach. She's got so many things on her shoulders to deal with, and she's dealing with a lot on her own life and with our family and as a mother. So she doesn't have like a privilege to go into fundraising. It sounds bad, but it's not like a privilege. It's not like privilege. It's just something that she's got a lot of things on her shoulders for 20 years. And she worried about me being affected by this when I was going through emotions because I had connection with a sibling. I understand. Her name is Irina. She's incredible. She's around my age. And we spoke a lot and we became friends. And she's also director of a foundation. So she's a foundation in Ukraine and they're helping autistic children. So she's like very brave. And I'm very like out there, but I decided like I don't have to fundraise constantly. I don't have to constantly be trying to save the world. And understanding that it's a pattern of like the praise that I got as well. Sometimes when I go to Dixon, at the same time, it's something that I love. I love helping the world, but I must always remind myself to look as like if it's healthy, if it's not crossing boundaries of my mental health.
Oh
because
my gosh,
if it is,
that is so brilliant. We have such a black and white way of looking at helping that even if like it's almost like the knee-jerk reaction is that helping is good. But when we pulled that back and actually say, okay, if helping means that you're sacrificing your health, you're sacrificing your emotions, you're sacrificing other commitments, like we're forgetting that part of it. And so I think it's like really asks you to really pause and to look at something that we consider good, helping, and question yourself. Get behind your motives and ask your why behind it. Ask yourself if you honestly have the reserves and what it takes. And recognizing that we as mothers, us as mothers, you as a sibling, have to actually get critical, like critical in a good way, about actually caring for ourselves. It's not just a nice idea. And I think so much of us hear that, mothers, it's like, oh, wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice if I could take care of myself? And I think it's through that lens that you will never take care of yourself. And it's through the lens of you as a sibling saying, I can't ask for anything. I've got to take care of myself, that you would have not changed your narrative, change your experience. I think we can just see so clearly how, it's not so easy as just quick answers, and there's no right or wrong answers for any one time, for any one person. Well, I do want to talk a little bit about service, because I want to actually add that service is a way that many of us actually can, my coaching speak, get back to being, get back to who we are. So when you're serving from a full cup, when you're serving and helping another mom or person or sibling, it actually does restore part of us. And so what are your thoughts on that? And what have you gotten from writing this book?
Yes, I love what you said, because giving service from the full cup, I just love that moment when I'm full of energy and I just go and give to people, and that abundant energy. But I have to have that abundant energy. I have to allow myself to receive in order to be able to give. So I have to be abundant in order to give abundance. And abundance doesn't mean money. It means, to me, everything. It means energy. Abundance to me means health. I always, like, because of all the experiences I had, for me, it means health. Like health, mental health, emotional health, physical health, like complete fullness of like having the energy that it's like, yes, now I can give. And then that's when I go, and I love that. This book was very therapeutic for me because I have also an amazing editor, Savannah Hayes, who's got BA in psychology. And that's why I told her, I actually chose her not just because of her background, but because of who she is as a person. She's extremely kind and compassionate. She's a wonderful listener. And she literally told me the most beautiful sentences, like, "Thank you for letting me see you." And I was like, oh my God, it's just, that was the most beautiful. So for me, it was very validating, because I told her I want to find studies for my experiences. It's like evidence. That's something like to be like, hey, this is not just me trying to get attention. It's something to give to my inner child, but it's just like, hey, this is true. And to give that to siblings and give it to moms, so they can see that, yeah, the studies show that the bad things, but also show the solutions. And if what I say in the introduction, that in the old studies, it was mostly focused on the positives of sibling relationship. And one of the reasons was because they did it with young children, and children and adults, they're different things. And there are multiple reasons for that, obviously. Like, I was taught that I have to hide everything behind a smile and, show how a perfect, happy family we are. And none of my friends knew that I have autistic brother until the age of 16, 17, probably. Because I have very bad experiences, like when people like society was treating my brother, like calling him, and children were treating him badly also in front of me. So I had a very hurtful feelings. I was like, no, I know what it's like to be bullied. I'm going to try to protect him and also myself from feeling that shame, that it's not towards him, but it's like that hurt, that feeling of pain. I didn't want to feel that. So it wasn't like I was embarrassed of him. I was trying to protect myself and him.
Great awareness.
Yeah. But that's why, that's why I was explaining to one mom that she asked, like, why her daughter is distancing herself from her brother, because when she comes and picks that up, and that she feels that she doesn't know what to do, and she feels as a horrible mother, that she can't parent her child, something like that. She started feeling guilty about that, and then understanding the point of view that it's different. It's like, no, your daughter, she might not be embarrassed of your son. She might feel certain feelings like shame and guilt also, and hurt and pain, and she doesn't know how to process those emotions. So maybe she's going through things herself. I'm just trying to bring different perspectives to moms, so they don't have to feel like, oh, I'm doing something wrong. Oh, I'm punishing themselves for not being perfect parent. Nobody wants you to be perfect parents, moms. We just want you to listen to yourself, and then to us also, because when you listen to yourself, you will pick up on the cues that we're sending as children. Also, I don't know, I went off like completely somewhere else.
No, it was awesome. It's all good. And as we start to wrap up a little bit, I wanted to kind of reiterate the 2 points that you said earlier when I said, okay, what do you want the moms to know? Like, given the lens that you have, and it was the two things. It was, you didn't explicitly say this, but basically you said what your mom did well is she listened to you. So listening, active listening. And moms, let me know if you want help in this area, because actually active listening is a skill that's developed and it's not easy. We as moms, when we hear our kids tell us something, we're like, we want to go fix it. That's not active listening. So active listening, and then also asking for help. So I feel like if anyone has 2 takeaways from this episode, it's learn to listen to yourself and to your child and ask for help.
Yes.
Anything else that you want to add as we wrap up this episode?
That if you feel called to any of those points, if you see my book and it's written autism, don't get discouraged, because it's for, I was thinking about naming this book about special needs siblings, and I didn't, because I didn't want to, it applies to many special needs siblings, special needs sibling parenting, but I wanted to be clear. I want to be like specific. It's like my experiences with autism. So even though there are many relatable things, there are many common things, and I come from, and I reference even like the relationship and marriage therapists, Harville Hendricks and Helen. I'm applying it to autism, but it is very relatable to special needs parenting. It's just my choice that I want to be, and I want it to be like truthful, and I don't want to be like, oh, I know it all. I don't, but I'm giving perspectives.
That's a really good point. And actually, that's one of the reasons why this show is named so generically. Like, special needs mom can mean a million different things. And what I think I get to see in my shoes is it actually doesn't matter the disability that the child has. It doesn't matter if it's a physical disability or whether it's medical or maybe a learning disability. That the experience that we have as moms is all the same. So I have to make the jump and say, same thing as a sibling, whatever the thing is, we could replace that word with any diagnosis, and I think it would still very much work. So thanks for putting that in there. Well, Mishka, I really enjoyed this conversation, and thank you so much for reaching out. And thank you so much for being a voice in this world that is for possibility and is for love. Like, I just hear the love that you have for your brother and your mom and yourself, and for the moms that you're actually out seeking to help. So thank you so much for being who you are.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been so lovely and very therapeutic to say, because you've got a beautiful voice also. It's very soothing. So I'm so happy that I'm here and I get the privilege to be here, and I'm very honored to be speaking with you.
Thank you. Well, we'll see you on the next episode. One more thing before we officially wrap up this show. Sometimes when I'm listening to podcasts, I have the experience of wanting more. I'm listening at the very end thinking, I sure wish that episode didn't end. I invite you, if you feel in any way the same way, I invite you to the Special Needs Mom podcast community, which is a free group that I host on Facebook, where we as a community of fellow moms who listen to this podcast and are experiencing life in similar shoes, get to talk to one another, get to share stories, get to actually interact. I hope you'll consider joining. See you over there.